and ABC iView.
Tonight, the Liberal Party threatens legal action against the state's Electoral Commission over local council nominations.
Legal action is just stringing out what was a complete stuff-up.
Senior Hamas officials downplay hopes of a ceasefire in Gaza. TV stars sparkle on the red carpet ahead of tonight's Logie Awards in Sydney. And a Golden Point thriller in the NRL. Cronulla defeat Newcastle thanks to the boot of Dan Atkinson. Good evening, Nakari Thorpe with ABC News Sunday. The New South Wales Liberal Party is set to take legal action against the state's Electoral Commission. The Liberals say they've found a flaw in the Commission's processes and should therefore be given more time to nominate candidates for next month's local government elections. But the Commissioners refusing to budge, saying the deadline was clear.
They were once political rivals, but today Baird and Minns formed a powerful partnership. The Cricket Australia chairman was at the SCG, confirming Sydney will host the next 7 New Year's Day tests, but he was left lamenting his party's very costly fumbles.
Look, it's hard to believe. For me, when I think of administrative challenges or stuff-ups, this is right at the top of the list.
The former Liberal leader says he'd back an independent inquiry into how the party missed the deadline to nominate about 140 candidates in next month's local government elections.
I'm heartbroken because I know many candidates who have put their heart and soul into their communities, and they're not going to be given the chance.
Despite admitting its own errors last week, the Liberal Party is now set to take legal action. In a statement, the Liberals claim the New South Wales Electoral Commission made a significant error because it called for nomination proposals 5 days before the close for nominations instead of the required minimum of 7 days. This mistake is not just a technicality, it goes to the heart of ensuring a fair and transparent election.
Legal action is just stringing out what was a complete stuff-up.
The state government knows a thing or two about missed deadlines, but in the early hours of tomorrow, the delayed Sydney Metro project will open to passengers. Travelling at more than 100 kilometres an hour in some sections, commuters are being warned to hang on tight.
The trains are fast, they accelerate quickly and they brake quickly as well. But that is what gives the system the speed between stations.
Credit should go to the man behind me, Mike Baird, his successor Gladys Berejiklian and her successor Dominic Perrottet.
My credit goes to Chris Minns and Joe Halen and this government.
A $21 billion delivery that's passed through many hands. Nick Dole, ABC News, Sydney.
Hamas militants have shut down US hopes of brokering peace in Gaza as peddling an illusion. It comes just a day after US President Joe Biden said he was optimistic of a breakthrough. With ceasefire talks deadlocked, Israel is pressing on with its offensive, with one of its latest airstrikes killing more than a dozen Palestinians, including children from the same family.
The sound of an Israeli drone drowned out by 2 explosions. 17 Palestinians were killed in an Israeli airstrike in central Gaza. Most of them were from the same family, including children. The Israeli military says it had issued an evacuation order for nearby areas before the strike. But Gazans say nowhere is truly safe, from bombs and increasingly disease. Polio, a debilitating illness that spreads in polluted water, has returned here.
I urge all the international community, the destruction should stop now.
Israel has been pressing ahead with its offensive, intensifying strikes even as US diplomats push for peace. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is heading to Israel after a NATO meeting in Europe. Ending the war is top of the agenda.
I'm optimistic.
But senior Hamas officials downplayed the prospects for an agreement, saying Washington is peddling illusions. hope is an increasingly rare commodity for Israelis as well as Palestinians.
This is a very tense time for us. We learned from past experience that not to build the expectation too much.
Overnight, Israel and Hezbollah exchanged fire on the Lebanese border. Smoke today warning this could still become a much larger conflict. There's the added fear that if these ceasefire talks fail, Iran and the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah will launch major strikes against Israel. They've been withholding their promised retaliation for assassinations in Beirut and Tehran for more than 2 weeks now, with the ceasefire seen as the only way to prevent escalation. While everyone waits and hopes, many Gazans are being forced by Israeli evacuation orders to flee again. The so-called safe zones are getting smaller, and Gazans are wondering how many more people will die before a ceasefire is finally signed. Eric Twacek, ABC News, Jerusalem.
This week, shocking new NAPLAN results showed 1/3 of Australia's school students are failing to meet basic literacy and numeracy benchmarks. And the next 6 weeks will shape the future for public schools in Australia as high-stakes negotiations continue over school funding. More than a decade after fair funding was promised, public schools are still more than $5 billion short of what was promised in the landmark Gonski Review.
Ambervale High School in Sydney's far southwest is one of the most disadvantaged in the country, but it's also a place of transformation.
Every year we are completely changing the trajectory of a whole generation.
Principal Louise Barneau-Clement can relate to these kids.
This school is one of the best schools in Sydney. Wonderful principal, she's a nice one.
The first in her family to go to university, she dropped out of law school to follow her heart.
It's a calling. I think it's such important social work as well as obviously educational work.
Hi girls. Hi. How's your day?
Some of the students have never been as far as the CBD. Louise tries to level life's playing field.
So you may not have been to the Opera House, you may not have seen a musical, you may not have gone to the theatre. There are so many things that other children and young people get because their families can't afford it.
Students are hungry to be the first person in their family to go to uni. Year 11 student Amy Hale is preparing to support herself through her future studies.
I couldn't have done my barista training without the school because I wouldn't be able to afford it. It's a really expensive course to do and the school covered the entire cost of it.
Underfunding means heartbreaking choices.
So the best way to explain it would be to say, at the moment, I can close equity gaps in pockets, but the dream of being able to do it for everyone.
Across Australia, public schools are about $5 billion short of their Gonski minimum funding targets every year. That's a lot of buildings, support staff and extra resources for the more than 2 million students at public schools.
At public schools, states pay for 80% of costs and the Commonwealth 20%.
The Commonwealth is offering to lift its share of funding public schools to 22.5% at a cost of about $16 billion. Western Australia and the Northern Territory have signed on, but the other states say they won't do a deal unless the offer is doubled.
Our kids are missing out by more than $1,000 a year in public schools. I can't really sleep at night if that's what our kids are experiencing in our schools.
New South Wales Minister Prue Carr is leading the states and teachers pushing for more money.
We're pretty much all in unison saying that's clearly not enough.
Our members have had enough. We are now going to campaign on this issue in the lead up to the next federal election.
For now, the Commonwealth insists it's made a fair and final offer. Back at Ambervale, they're warning a funding failure will sting for generations.
What do we want as a nation? Do we want a nation in which all of our young people are entitled to the same quality of education?
A fisherman is lucky to be alive after he was slapped in the face by a whale's tail near the New South Wales-Queensland border. The man in his 30s was fishing with a friend a kilometre off Tweed Heads Bar when he was struck in the head about 9 o'clock this morning. Authorities say he sustained superficial facial injuries as a result. His friend, who was unharmed, called 000. Rescue crews found the pair and brought them back to shore. The man was taken to hospital in a stable condition. Paramedic Scott Brown says it was a career first for him.
Advice would be just to be cautious that there are a lot of whales at this time of year in that area, and today has shown us that anything could happen.
Well, the red carpet's been rolled out in Sydney for the 2024 Logie Awards. This year's nominations show an increasing focus on streaming, and the night could see some big wins for the ABC. Sean Tarry Goodwin has more from the red carpet.
Some of Australia's best-known TV stars have been streaming down the red carpet ahead of tonight's Logie Awards. The Logies celebrate Australian television from comedy to drama to current affairs. 7 people are nominated for the Gold Logie, the top gong in tonight's awards, including Asha Keddy, Andy Lee, Julia Morris, Larry Emder, Robert Irwin and last year's winner Sonia Kruger. Also nominated is the ABC's own Tony Armstrong, who's won multiple awards in recent years.
So often we talk about having diversity on TV, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. But then when you get to the pointy end, it's everyone kind of looks the same, you know. So, yeah, I think it'd be nice.
We're really all just here as Tony's cheerleaders. We're the Tony cheer squad.
It's a big year for the ABC with a record number of nominations. 51 presenters and programs are nominated across the categories tonight.
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, who doesn't love the ABC? You know, it's our national broadcaster. Get behind it.
There's also been some changes this year to the categories with new sections in comedy and reality TV. There's a notable increased focus on streaming this year with multiple nominations for shows like Boy Swallows Universe on Netflix, The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart on Prime Video and Love Me on Binge.
It's great because it means our industry's growing. There's more opportunities to get Australian stories on the streamers.
I think it's cool to have combinations of, you know, all different, you know, free to air and then having streaming as well. And I think I think that's cool.
Stars from those shows and a raft of others will soon find out who will take home the trophies tonight.
Sun, sandy beaches and palm trees. Solomon Islands looks like the Pacific Island dream. But some in the community feel they don't belong. Stigma prevents people living with disability from accessing education or employment opportunities. Naz Campanella travelled to Honiara to meet some of the locals, forging their own path to success.
But a very good morning once again. If you just find time.
Jarvis Maneka has made history in the Solomon Islands.
We'll check out the weather. It's a bit look like it's cloudy day today, George.
Yeah, and also fine too. So we never know, yeah?
It's very unpredictable.
He co-hosts the breakfast show for the country's national broadcaster.
I'm super proud of it that I am now the first blind radio presenter in the country.
Born on the remote island of Bellona, Jarvis initially went to the local school. But with his vision deteriorating, the teachers could no longer support him. He was told not to come back.
When you're hearing your classmates going out to the school and you recognize their voices, that was really stressful. And I thought, what on earth that I have to be just like locked up this way? I look at myself as a failure.
Years later in the capital Honiara, Jarvis finally found a school that would enrol him.
Education opportunities for students with disability across the Solomon Islands are limited. Now in its 47th year, the Specialist Development Centre remains one of the only schools in the country providing these students with a place to learn.
How many more?
Most students who transition into mainstream education end up back here, where they learn hands-on skills as well as literacy and numeracy. But the centre is poorly resourced, and the principal says parents have unrealistic expectations.
They expect their child to be in the school for 6 months or for a year and then go to their mainstream school.
He says stigma can be a major reason some children with disability don't go to school at all.
There are some people in the society who still think that those people with disability cannot contribute to the development in our community.
Eddie Babanissi believes that attitude has stopped him from fulfilling his dream of becoming a lawyer. He studied abroad, but has struggled to find work after coming home.
Applying to jobs that are not getting any place is really a disappointment.
Eddie is still making use of his legal training, having started a blindness advocacy group. While the father of three's career hasn't turned out how he planned, he knows he's making a difference.
I have a beautiful family who make me want to live each day, to be able to help other blind people, and not only blind people, but other people with disabilities as well.
Despite the obstacles many students with disability face here, there is a sense of hope in the community that the future will be brighter for the next generation.
For my future, I want to be a chef. I want to become a nurse when I grow up.
I want to become a builder when I grow up.
With role models like Jarvis Maneka, they're being shown anything is possible.
I am really, really optimistic about what lies ahead of me.
As China's economy struggles, young people are increasingly turning to social media as they grow frustrated with the workforce. Expected to work huge hours amid a struggling economy, some millennials and Gen Zers are posting about their plans to quit and travel, disillusioned with Chinese work pressures and corporate culture. East Asia correspondent Kathleen Calderwood has more.
Chen Zijun is learning how to put up a fight. But not that long ago, she had no fight left.
I felt drained. I kept on delivering. I didn't have time to rest or learn something new. This type of work and life is not what I want, so I chose to quit.
Zijun is part of a group of young people choosing to opt out of China's relentless work culture. She decided to naked quit, meaning she left her job without a backup plan in place. And she's been documenting that journey online.
Still, there are lots of people who choose naked quitting. If the situation is not improved, naked quitting will only become more popular.
Of course, the young people would feel burnout. Most of their awake hours are just work with limited material return.
On the back of the pandemic, China's economic growth has slowed amid an ongoing real estate crisis and high youth unemployment. At the same time, a record number of young people are graduating from university into a competitive market.
There's this new phenomenon they call work-life integration. And just in a way, forget about your personal life. Every aspect is permeated by workplace culture.
It's hard to know exactly how many young people are opting out of the rat race, but a survey by a Chinese social media app found that around 70% of young respondents weren't afraid of quitting without another job lined up.
However, this path is only really available to those who can afford it.
If one is from a not well-off family, then it's simply not possible to disengage. You have to take the best job. It might be below the job you want, but you take what job you can get.
For now, Zijun is trying to figure out what matters to her most.
Through Muay Thai, I'm exercising every day to keep myself in a good headspace, so I can make a better decision for my next step.
A personal battle anyone can relate to. Kathleen Calderwood, ABC News.
Hawthorn and the Western Bulldogs have both strengthened their finals credentials with big wins this afternoon. The Bulldogs beat North Melbourne by 96 points, while the Hawks won by 63 over Richmond. It means both sides now hold their season in their own hands, heading into the final round.
With finals on the horizon, the Hawks were on a mission.
Oh, yes!
Just as the goals started to pile up, Will Day's season looked as if it had come to an end.
Just looking a bit sore there in the shoulder.
But if his teammates were disheartened, it didn't show.
It is an avalanche!
A 9-goal first quarter blowing Richmond away. Adam Uze made the move down to the bench and the Tigers started to show some fight.
He bends it, through for a ripper!
The Hawks took their foot off the gas in the third and Shea Bolton capitalised.
And that is the brilliance Bolton has warmed Richmond hearts with for years.
But there was no making up the difference. Young gun Nick Watson finishing with 3.
What about the whiz?
And veteran Jack Gunston turning back the clock.
Gunston's going to line up for 5.
The Hawks happy to cruise through to the final round, with a finals berth so close they can taste it. At the Docklands, the Bulldogs threatened to make mincemeat out of the Roos, and Aaron Norton set about doing just that.
The fend-off, the snap, the goal!
Charlie Comben was subbed out early, and Nick Larkey's knee was also giving him grief, while Sam Darcy helped the Dogs to a 41-point lead at half-time.
Can he get the 3? He can.
The goal fest continued from there.
6 goals for Sam Darcy.
A career-best haul for the 21-year-old in a game where a percentage boost was welcome. Attention now turns to a match-up against the Giants in Ballarat as the Roos limp to the finish line. Erin Marsicovetere, ABC News.
In the NRL, the Sharks have come from behind this evening to defeat the Knights in a thrilling golden point finish in Cronulla. Dan Atkinson's successful field goal keeps the Sharks in 4th on the competition ladder, narrowly ahead of the Bulldogs.
Newcastle's finals hopes were all but ended with one clean kick of the football.
Right foot strikes it, he likes it, and they've won it!
For most of the second half, they had a lead on the top 4 Cronulla side, but the Knights put themselves under pressure, making consecutive errors, which allowed the Sharks back into the contest. It was a frantic scramble to the 80-minute mark, with both teams kicking field goals, only for them to be disallowed under this season's new block runner rule.
Blockers against the Sharks! Can you believe it?
Sending the game to golden point, where Dan Atkinson sealed the Sharks' 19 points to 18 win.
Second field goal of his career, second winning field goal.
The equation was simple for the Dragons earlier today: win and jump back inside the top 8. And after their highest scoring first half in 2 years, they were well on the way. The 13th place Titans put up a good fight in attack and only leaked 1 second half try, but the damage had been done, with the Dragons taking the 32-16 win.
We've given ourselves a shot to play finals footy. That's all we could ask for from where we came from last year, so it's up to us to go and get it.
And the Wests Tigers have broken a 7-game losing streak, holding on in a dramatic finish to defeat the Rabbitohs by 2 points in Campbelltown last night.
Oh yes, Charlie Staines has scored!
Rabbitohs players and coaching staff thought they'd scored a match-winning try at the game's end.
They're celebrating in the coach's box!
Only for the last pass to be called forward, giving the West Tigers the 18-16 win.
Hey, whether you win by 1 or 2 or you win by 20, at the moment, we needed the win.
The win means the Tigers may be able to avoid claiming this year's wooden spoon. Anthea Moody, ABC News.
Cronulla is sitting on top of the NRLW ladder after a tight 2-point win at home over Newcastle. The Sharks showed grit to win 14 points to 12, despite the Knights scoring more tries. The 2-time premiers recorded back-to-back losses for the first time in 3 years, while Cronulla remains undefeated. And the Sydney Roosters recovered from a slow start to notch up a convincing win over St George Illawarra in Wollongong. Captain Isabel Kelly starred with 2 tries in her team's 28 points to 8 victory. South Africa has outmuscled the Wallabies again in the Rugby Championship with a 30 points to 12 win in Perth. Australia kept the two-time reigning World Cup champions in check during the first half, but two powerful balls after the break gave the Springboks their second win over the Wallabies in as many weeks, and they retained the Nelson Mandela Challenge plate. The Wallabies will play the Pumas in Argentina in 2 weeks.
Look, I think that was a better performance, and the score didn't reflect how we played, but, you know, we're building, and it's always going to be the case with a new coach, new team. You know, we're in this rebuild phase.
Well, from tomorrow, you'll notice things looking and sounding a little different on ABC News. We're launching our new look news website, and our television news bulletins are getting a revamp as well. There'll be a new colour scheme and graphics, and the return of a theme song that for some will be like seeing an old friend.
OK, here we go.
If you were born in Australia before the year 2000, this song will likely be baked into your televisual memories. For nearly 20 years, it heralded the start of news bulletins on the ABC. And now, after a rest of almost as long, it's back with a fresh lick of paint.
Oh, that just takes me right back. I got a full nostalgia response.
That's what we want.
The ABC TV news theme was composed by Peter Wall and Tony Ansell in 1986. They churned out hundreds of theme songs during their long creative partnership until Tony's death from cancer 20 years ago. Peter Wall still thinks this one is their best.
It's basically just luck, you know, you put the elements together and sometimes it just works out that you think that's the best thing we're going to write for a long time.
This is the last remaining multi-track tape the song was recorded onto in 1986 with a full orchestra in a studio. Digitising it involved finding a machine that could still actually play it and then preparing the ancient tape. And that was quite the process.
Because the tapes were so old, we had to bake them in an oven for 4 hours. To make sure the oxide on the tape wouldn't come off when we put them on the machine to play it. And then you get one go to get all the information off that tape.
It worked and gave sound designer David McDonald separate tracks to play with when modernising the song. He's beefed up the bass to reflect what modern-day TVs with soundbars are capable of, and there's an Easter egg for the keen listeners.
The beep, 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 beep is a Morse code for ABC.
This isn't the first time the ABC TV news theme has been revived. In 2010, WA band Pendulum turned it into a dance track. Peter loves that the news theme has been resurrected for today's news audience and thinks his dear friend Tony Ansell would have loved it too.
You know, I think he'd be absolutely delighted about it, yeah.
As well as a fresh look for our news bulletins, we'll have a new look website from tomorrow too that'll bring together the ABC's best digital journalism and allow you to personalise your feed to get the stories you're most interested in reading. Tamara O'Dine, ABC News.
Now let's take a look at the weather. In Sydney today, it was partly cloudy with some light showers about. The city reached a top of 18, 20 in Richmond. Overnight lows were near or above average. The most notable difference was through the central inland and parts of the southeast. Maximums today were within a degree or two of average for this time of year. On today's satellite, a frontal system is crossing over WA, generating extensive cloud over the southern part of the state. A trough is travelling up the New South Wales coast. On tomorrow's chart, a high pressure system south of the Bight is moving toward western New South Wales, bringing fine weather over most inland, isolated showers in the east. Around the country tomorrow, partly cloudy in Brisbane and Melbourne, showers increasing for Adelaide, cloudy in Canberra. For the northeast, partly cloudy and a chance of showers right across the region. Patches of frost in some parts in the northern tablelands. In the southeast, mostly sunny for the south coast, cloudy and the chance of morning fog and frost elsewhere. To the west, mostly sunny for the upper and lower west, partly cloudy for the rest of the region. Off the coast, southerly winds will reach 15 knots, up to 20 knots offshore in the evening, seas up to 1.5 metres. In Sydney tomorrow, it will be another partly cloudy day with a slight chance of a shower and light winds. The city will reach a top of 18, 19 in Penrith. The sun will rise at 6:28, and further ahead, it will be a mostly sunny day tomorrow, reaching a top of 22 in the city, then a shower or two for the rest of the week, with the temperatures hovering around the low 20s. Well, that's ABC News Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your evening.